Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Catherine Cook, the Vice Dean of Indigenous Health in the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences, and I'm honored to be reading this citation today. The highest honor the Senate of a university can confer upon an individual is an honorary doctorate. At the University of Manitoba, the criteria includes distinguished achievement in scholarship, the arts, or public service. Our honorary graduate this afternoon is Dr. Cindy Blackstock. You must go where the ancestors call you. These were the sage words offered by an Indigenous elder to Dr. Blackstock. The moment she heard them, she could feel their truth. She has always felt the pull toward a certain path, often not the easiest or the most obvious. By following that intuition, she has become one of the most passionate and effective crusaders for the rights of Indigenous children. Having witnessed inequity firsthand as a social worker, Dr. Blackstock has made it her life mission to reform Canada's child welfare system to meet the needs of all. She's the first to question why we must still resort to activism to ensure something so basic, that all little kids be treated the same. She believes in giving power to dreams and possibilities and never to negative forces. Dr. Blackstock has been described in many ways. Canada's relentless moral voice for Indigenous equality, our nation's own Martin Luther King, courageous single mom to thousands of children facing injustice. She may bristle at such accolades and tell you that she rides on the dreams of many who have championed Indigenous children. And indeed, her talent for bringing people together and mobilizing them to act is at the heart of her many achievements. That spirit is what led to the creation of the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society of Canada 20 years ago. Dr. Blackstock was among the founders, all of them child and family services workers, who knew that there must be a better way to serve Indigenous families. As executive director, she was at the center of a landmark complaint made to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. It gave voice to families and their right to equal access to government services, no matter what community they call home. She dedicated nearly a decade to this epic legal battle. 9 years after the complaint was filed, the tribunal announced its ruling in January of 2016. It was truly groundbreaking. For the first time in the history of Canada, or perhaps anywhere in the world, a national government had been held accountable for its mistreatment of Indigenous children. For Dr. Blackstock, the most gratifying moments came when she watched as non-Indigenous and Indigenous children stood together for the rights of all. Imagine the thrill of seeing 400 young people packed into a hearing room to support the same cause. Crowds so large that the proceedings had to be moved to a larger venue. Imagine those kids wearing T-shirts emblazoned with the words, "I am a witness," T-shirts they had designed themselves. 2 years after the ruling, this groundswell of support continues to gain momentum. Earlier this year, on February 14th, more than 1,000 students gathered on Parliament Hill to support Have a Heart Day for First Nations children. 11,000 more showed they care by sending Valentine's letters to their elected officials. Dr. Blackstock travels the country to communities large and small as a strong and tireless voice. She finds inspiration in a poem called Faith that speaks to knowing, even in the darkness, that there will be something solid upon which to stand before you learn to fly. Her advice to young people today is this: know your values and develop the courage to defend them. Dr. Blackstock continues to go where the ancestors call her, and today, thousands of others are making the journey with her, united in the pursuit of equality and social justice. Mr. Chancellor, it is an honor for me to ask, on behalf of the Senate of the University of Manitoba, that you confer on Dr. Cindy Blackstock the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor of this university, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges thereto appertaining. Congratulations, Dr. Blackstock.
What a great honor to be here today on Treaty 1 territory and homelands of the Métis and with all of you. Love is here today. Love is here in the struggles, moments when you thought you were going to give up, but you kept on going anyway. Love is here today in all of the people who have come to celebrate you. And love is here in those who may have passed on to the spirit world, but are still looking over you, cheering for you. And love is here today in the voices and in the lives of little children who one day will meet each one of you and be in need of help, and you're going to be there with them. There's lots of ways of describing how I ended up on this path, but alone is not one of them. And when life calls you in a direction that you never expected, to stand in the winds of discrimination and injustice, for yourself or for others, and most importantly, perhaps of all, for those you never know, you must rise to that occasion. You will never feel ready. You'll never feel smart enough. You'll never feel brave enough. But you have been chosen, and love will be there with you. I've taught that by the children. In this long legal battle, there were many adults, but the ones who showed up and acted in the spirit of reconciliation were children. Children that filled the courtrooms. And children, when they saw adults making excuses, the children took action. When children saw adults being angry, children held parades and sent letters with glitter and with color and with signs. And they were standing for a particular boy from Manitoba, who is a great hero in my life named Jordan River Anderson. Jordan River Anderson is from Norway House Cree Nation. Dr. Polsto was his doctor. He was born in Winnipeg Hospital. And for the first 2 years, he stayed there because it was medically necessary. But just after his second birthday, and parents, you know this, how much joy did you have when you brought your graduate home when they were just a baby? Well, that day had to be pushed off for Jordan. But on his second birthday, doctor said he could go home with adequate supports into a family home. But Jordan didn't go home because Jordan was a First Nations child. And because he's a First Nations child, what many Canadians don't understand is the federal government funds services on reserve, whereas the provinces fund it for all others. And back to Confederation, they have underfunded those services across every level of domain. And when you think about it, it makes sense, doesn't it? If we underfunded everybody else in society, we'd start to see those hardships. So little Jordan saw other little boys come into the hospital in his ward and get better and go home. But he was well enough to live in a family home, but he wasn't going anywhere because he was First Nations. As his sister Jerlene Anderson said, in the end, Jordan died of a broken heart. Just before his 5th birthday, he slips into a coma and passes away. But in that moment, children have a special gift. In our tradition, they're considered to be the closest to the Creator. And his spirit inspired and left a legacy called Jordan's Principle. And it ensures that all First Nations children in this country get services they need when they need them. It passed unanimously in the House of Commons, and then nothing happened. We adults let the kids down. But the children, they decided they'd do something. You see, teddy bears were Jordan's favorite toy. And so they gathered their teddy bears, and they went to the courtrooms. They gathered their pens and crayons, and they wrote letters to the Prime Minister. And finally, as of this year, Jordan's Principle has helped at least 80,000 services get to children who need them. No longer, because of non-Indigenous and First Nations children standing together with the power of love to defeat the darkness of discrimination, no longer in this country will we see another Jordan River Anderson perish in a hospital because of who he is. So you will be writing prescriptions. Some of you will be checking out their teeth. And both of those things are really important when it comes to kids, but I want you to always remember the greatest prescription of all. And that is, you're never too old for a teddy bear. And you're definitely never too old for a smile and a hug. And if you think about it, that's really what got you here today. All these people in this audience. They've given you the teddy bears, they've given you the hugs, they've given you the smiles, and sometimes they've given you the kick in the butt when you needed it. And you're here. And when you don't think you're able to, when life catches you up in that moment where you're standing in the headwinds of injustice and you're feeling unready, I want you to think of Jordan River Anderson. Jordan could not talk, but his message has been heard around the world. Jordan could not breathe on his own, but his breath of life has been breathed into the lives of thousands of children who would have been denied the help that they need. And Jordan could not talk, but his message of spirit and love has reached you all. So be inspired. And more than that, when you see injustice, be courageous enough to stand in it, because every kid is worth it. Congratulations. I'm so proud to be here with the University of Manitoba. Thank you, President. Thank you, Chancellor. And thank you so much to the superstars, the real stars of the day, the graduates. Congratulations.